An upload? Are you asking us? Oh yeah, I just record and then I upload it where it needs to go.
Okay, and I'm assuming on your end you can see the record button now lit.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here today. We are here to have a housing conversation for the community that we serve, which for a lot of us falls to some part of Cheboygan or Cheboygan County in its entirety. So Habitat for Humanity of Cheboygan County was blessed recently to receive a Women Build grant to help us with one of our 4 upcoming women head of household home repair projects that we have going on here in Cheboygan. With COVID-19 and everything that's happened in the housing world, we are just not allowed to engage Lowe's on our job site. We're currently still limited on how many volunteers we can have on a site. So Habitat International and Lowe's came together with the idea that they would work to provide funding for these projects, but Habitat for Humanity affiliates had to work to virtually engage the community in some capacity. So after much thought with the work I do with the Human Services Coordinating Body, I thought it would be great to get some key folks together to have a housing conversation. This is one topic that everybody has an opinion on, and there's not enough people in the world right now that can just fix this housing problem that we have going on. So that's kind of why we're here today. And a little bit about Women Build.
Experience. I am looking forward to moving in. I am looking forward to having my first barbecue and just having something to call my own.
It's incredible. More than 6,000 volunteers coming together across 235 communities between the US, Montreal, and Bangalore. I mean, it's just incredible what this has grown into over time, and the ability for us, quite frankly, to make an impact in all of the communities in which we serve.
Everybody's story is not everybody's story, and I am very excited and happy, and I'm gracious to have this opportunity with Lowe's and Habitat today.
So a quick little history for everybody here. I actually came to Habitat. My first ever experience was with a Habitat Women Build project in Traverse City. And then from there, my career kind of kicked off. So I'm a big advocate of our Women Build program and excited that we can participate for the first time at our affiliate. So today we're going to introduce our panelists. We have some Cheboygan housing statistics, and then we're going to do a Q&A conversation. And then each of our agency has some information about the programs that they offer or what they're doing in the community with regards to housing. And Angie Lacoste from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is going to help moderate our Q&A session today. So myself, I am Mandy Martin. I am the Executive Director at Cheboygan County Habitat for Humanity. We have Catherine Schultz, who is the Director at the Cheboygan Housing Commission, Greg Elliott, who is the CPA Advisor for Cheboygan Estates Development, and a longtime Habitat supporter, as Greg sat on our board for a long time in the past. We have Joy Wunderjim. She is the Area Specialist at USDA Rural Development, and Victoria Purvis, who's the Director of Homeless and Prevention Services at Northeast Michigan Community Service Agency, also known as NEMSCA. Thank you guys so much for being here. As we kind of go through the stats, Kate, you did help provide some of them, so if you want to jump in at any point. We took a look at housing statistics. Habitat International has a state of affordable housing for 2020 for Michigan. So throughout the state in 2020, there's a shortage of 189,000 homes, affordable and available households for extremely low income renters in Michigan. The wage required to afford a fair market rent for a 2-bedroom housing, you need to make $7.42 an hour. So it's really hard to afford a decent place to live throughout the state and here in our community. If you're not familiar with ALICE, ALICE is a term that comes from United Way. ALICE is an acronym for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed Households. These households, they earn more than the federal poverty level, but less than the basic cost of living for the county. So in the state, ALICE households average is 29%, and the state average of households in poverty is 14%. So here in Cheboygan County, from the 2017 point in time data, we had roughly 25,475 people, 11,348 households, and 16% of those households were living in poverty, and 26% were considered ALICE households. As you can see in the chart on the right, it kind of breaks it out by township. So we have quite a few high areas. The city of Cheboygan, the ALICE and poverty percentage, 50% of households in the city of Cheboygan are at or below the ALICE threshold. Just interesting information kind of as we dive in. I tried to take a look at the household survival budget and fair market rent. So again, this is referencing the household survival budget for the ALICE report. So a single adult, they need to make $10.21 just to afford the basic life necessities. So housing, $482, food, $199, transportation, $340, healthcare, $236, technology, $55, and then $155 for miscellaneous. So $1,700 a month that they need just to afford life's basic necessities. And one of the things we talk about here at Habitat is, well, what happens when your car breaks down? What happens when you just have an emergency? All of these households are just one situation away from being back into a crisis situation. When you look at a family of 4 with an infant and a preschooler, childcare, $905 a month, housing, $681 a month. And that's based on the fair market rent. But as most of us are aware, I'm not necessarily sure where you can find a safe, decent place to live for $681 for a family of 4 in our community, key being safe, yet also affordable. One of the things that we see here a lot is we have a lot of elderly people that are on Social Security. The Social Security income was capped at $735 a month. And sure, their home may be paid off, but there's still a lot of other basic necessities that these people need that they can barely afford. These are the resources for the next set of data that we are going to get into. So the U of M Poverty Solutions housing data looks at, kind of compares 2014 to 18 data versus 2009 to 2013. So in the first set of time, 2014 to 2018, there were 18,459 total housing units. 60% were occupied, 39 were vacant. And then if you look down at the year the structures were built, a very small percentage of homes in our community are being built in these current times. A lot of the homes, just 18% of the homes were built between 1990 and 99. 12.1%, 1980 to 1989, 17.5%, 1970 to 1979. And then it goes on, 11%, 7%, 4%, 14.7% built before 1939. I can say from our program, we definitely are doing a lot more home repairs in the community than we've ever done. And there's a huge need for that to continue. So it is pretty interesting, but the cost to build affordably is definitely a deterrent for us going forward. When you look at the number of bedrooms, 1.8% have no bedroom, 7.4% one bedroom. So if you are a single adult in Cheboygan trying to find a one bedroom home, it's going to be pretty hard to find. 2 bedrooms, 29.5%, 3 bedrooms, 44.1%. It's pretty interesting when you kind of just take a look at where we're at and the statistics available. So when you look at housing tenure, 11,201 of the total occupied homes, 82% are owner occupied, 17.6% are renter occupied. Average household size of owner occupied is 2.26 versus the renter of 2.18. And then the statistics offered some reported data on some special characteristics, and 0.3% lack complete plumbing facilities, 0.3% lack complete kitchen facilities, 2.2% had no telephone service available. And then when it comes to owner-occupied values of homes, the median range for our region in the 2014-2018 estimate year, 125,100. So definitely interesting data here. Housing units with a mortgage, 53.8% had a mortgage, 46.2% no longer carried a mortgage. And gross rent as a percent of household income, 35.6% of community members were paying 35% or more of their household income as rent. Less than 15%, 14.4%, 15 to 19, 10.3%, 20 to 24.9%, 12.9%, 25 to 29.9, 18.2%, 30 to 34.9, 8.6%. And there were some not computed figures in there as well. So Ange, I'm going to let you take it away with the Q&A section.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. So for the members of the panel, what are the housing issues that you see in the community? And we have to remember that we don't have 24 hours to continue the discussion. So who wants to start?
I can, from a lender for, I don't look at rental issues. I'm looking at availability of homes to get my borrowers into homes. And right now what's going on, issue is there are no homes for sale. I mean, homes are selling before they even get listed because they're just going so fast and there's nothing available. So we're having a hard time with that in our agency, getting people into homes because there's no homes available.
See, we our affiliate decided a few years ago, the cost to build new was just too expensive. We couldn't do it affordably for the community. So we switched to doing home rehabs. So I can echo Joy's concerns. There are not a lot of homes on the market. And if they are scooped up extremely fast, and it makes it hard to then rehab a home affordably because the homes that are available are costing more. So that is an issue that we see. We also see a lot of issues with just a lack of rentals in the work that we do. We get a lot of phone calls for people needing rentals that can't get a hold of a landlord, don't have credit to get into a place, or have a criminal history that prevents them from getting into places. And we don't have homes readily available to transition someone into a safe place until they can get the home that they need. So we definitely would benefit as a community from having some type of transitional housing to get people into a safe place while they fix what they need to fix in order to get into a safe, decent, and affordable home.
Yeah, I will echo that. So we do the homeless and homeless prevention, and we did a kind of a FAQ session with the landlords in Cheboygan County last year before the pandemic hit, and a lot of the landlords were saying that what we can pay for rent doesn't nearly even cover the cost of what they will charge for rent. So we are advocates for both the tenants and the landlords. And from the tenant's point of view, the fair market rent is set at a standard for a reason. However, it doesn't give the landlords any flexibility to make the renovations that are needed. Along with, we are only able to pay between 6 and 18 months worth of rent. And like you said, with the transitional housing, we have rapid rehousing. So they're trying to get into housing and secure within 6 months. And it's very difficult to get on your feet within 6 months to be able to even afford $500 a month. So Mandy, when you showed the fair market rent that is established by HUD for our programming, that has to include their utility allowance as well. So you'll see some apartments that are $550 a month for a 1-bedroom, but then you have to pay utilities on top of it. So that's something that a lot of landlords don't consider when they're trying to feel out how much to charge a tenant. Especially a lot of the first-time landlords, they don't want to pay the utilities because they don't really know how that operation works. So they'll charge $700 a month plus utilities, when in reality, yeah, FMR might be $700, but that doesn't take into consideration what they have to pay for their heat and water and all of that. So landlords are very scared about entering into the market.
So I will add that, yes, both of those things are issues. So with the property values in Cheboygan increasing so quickly within the past year, and so many people that have either inherited a home and were using it as a rental, or we have a number of investors that bought up homes that were vacant for the better part of the past 15 years, and were using those as rentals. And now that they can get a pretty substantial return on that investment, a lot of those homes that were being used as rentals are being sold, which, like Victoria said, is decreasing the market of available rentals. And with regard to the payment standards, we did raise our payment standards here at the Housing Authority so that we could assist more households. So we were denying a lot of requests for tenancy approval because with the income that people make in Cheboygan being so low, they could not afford what people were charging in rent. But even with our payment standards set as at the maximum, which is 110% of the FMR, we still have people that struggle with affordability. And the lack of 1-bedroom units in your data is a real struggle. So we have a number of voucher assisted families that are only eligible for a 1-bedroom, but they're living in 2 bedrooms because there just are not units out there. And then I will say, the data that you showed is helpful, but I do think it's a really big issue in Cheboygan that we don't actually have data on how many homes are being used as rentals and what are owners charging for rent on those units. So a lot of this is we're just making a lot of assumptions about what is being used as a rental, and we really have no idea how to determine what the actual rents being charged are. What we hear a lot when our clients are looking to lease up is the owners do not want to rent, like Victoria said, to a subsidized family because they can charge much more to an unsubsidized family. So it is really a big barrier for people who are trying to become self-sufficient.
And I can speak to both ends of this because my business partner and I, we have purchased rentals. We started back in 2007. with the financial crisis and things like that, there were houses that were being foreclosed on and there wasn't anyone to buy them. So we had started purchasing some of them. And, our goals are to have a home that both the tenant can afford to pay the rent and the utilities. So we try to have, good windows and insulation and everything in the homes. And then, from there, it's just based on, what our annual costs are and everything, and to where if, we're able to increase the rent because we have to repair homes after, those prices have been in there. We're probably in the range of 700 to $725 on, most of the 2 and 3 bedroom homes. At the other end of that spectrum, the program that I'm working with now, this gentleman for the Cheboygan Estates, those homes are mostly going to be, and in fact, since we purchased the first 3 back in November, they're manufactured modular Boca homes, so they're nice homes and everything. But their prices have gone up 10% at least ever since then, just because of what's going on with COVID. But those homes are going to be at best 175. We started out, the high end was 192. They're probably going to be 200 now. And so those aren't going to be, for low income people, but hopefully they're going to bring people into town that, they either have jobs or some money. They're purchasing these homes and they're spending more money in Cheboygan and, creating more money to be flowing around.
Yeah, you make a good point. So COVID definitely has caused an increase in the cost of building materials. But not only that, I'm struggling to find contractors that are licensed and insured that can do some of our projects. And then some of them, I've been told, are booked out until July of next year. So
At
that
least.
is making it much harder to do a lot of things affordably. So when you switch to the indoor stick-built home, they still have cost issues there. So while that is comparable in some ways to, I guess in the habitat world of, building a home with volunteers, which we can't really use, then our contractors are busy and then their costs are going up. And so building new stick built or building a indoor stick built home, Boca home, I mean, either option, they're both hard anymore.
And I think you've all brought up some really good points, and that shows the depth and the breadth of the issues with housing in our community. And I'm sure there's a ton more that we can probably bring up. But let's go to number 2. How is your organization working to address the issues? Are there things that we can do to address the issues? Kate, you had mentioned the lack of rental homes and the cost of rent being charged, not having the data for that. Is there some way to address that? Is there ways to work with families like getting the transitional housing that was mentioned? What are your ideas on how you can address those issues?
It sounds like you're asking me specifically.
No, I'm asking everybody.
Okay.
But you had mentioned kind of that was one of the issues, and how could our community address that?
Right. So one thing that the Housing Authority has done, like I said before, is we raised our payment standards so that we are not denying so many requests for people. A big thing that we are working on is pursuing plans to reposition and redevelop the properties that the Housing Authority does own and manage. So we can get onto a more stable funding platform, then we can maybe add units and ensure affordability moving forward. And with that, maybe it would free up some resources so that we could address something like the transitional housing and low barrier housing that I know Victoria, her clients could use. Mandy has said that her clients could use. We have advocacy meetings. So before we make any big plans for redevelopment, a really important thing to do is to ask the people who need affordable housing what would work for them and what an affordable situation would look like for them. So advocacy meetings, anyone is invited to participate in them. So we're looking for rental owners We're looking for tenant advocates with lived experience or people who have lived experience with homelessness, a local leadership, and anyone who's interested in human services. And I think I addressed everything else. So those are the big thing. The main one being redeveloping what we have, try to expand our programming, and maybe free up resources to implement some more innovative housing types that we all know are a need in Cheboygan.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to address how your organization is looking at the issues that you've mentioned?
Well, I don't really have an organization. I'm just doing it kind of from a personal level. I'm a CPA here in Cheboygan. We had some issues years back with the township and the city and trying to get Myers into Cheboygan. I ended up, getting on the board to help facilitate that, which we did. Now they're kind of at a whole, they're kind of sitting still right now. And I think a lot of these places, businesses or whatever, they're looking at Cheboygan, and if they bring their business here, where are these people going to live that are going to work? And so that's kind of how I jumped on the bandwagon as far as trying to get some extra housing in town, and basically convinced a gentleman from out of the state to do a development here in town. And if we can get more homes into Cheboygan, these businesses that'll possibly come here would have places for their employees to live.
Yeah, we definitely need a shift in our housing, whether it's the Hope Network development that was talked about coming to town, or your development that you're taking part in. I mean, affordable housing needs to be affordable for the individuals, and obviously we have different income ranges. So we need different levels of affordable housing for the different incomes that we have in our community. So having more housing and having that housing shift would be huge for our community.
So I think that leads into number 3. What would you like to see happen in Cheboygan to continue addressing housing issues such as affordability and other barriers?
I will say this because it's my baby some days. I am an advocate of tiny homes, small homes. I think there are people in the community that don't need an 1,100 square foot home. If you're a single person and you're a minimalist, you could survive in a 500 square foot home. I think we have to work to address some of those issues, even 720 square feet. If we can build a little bit smaller or get creative with I'm going to call it multi-purpose housing because I cannot think of the word right now. But we have to start getting a little different in our thought process. Traditional housing is not going to work anymore.
It's not affordable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not affordable to maintain. It's not affordable to build. It's not affordable to live in. I think the tiny home idea is great if they'll bring it to a smaller area. I know down in Iosco, they had actually tried a couple of years ago. One of the shelter owners, and the city zoning wouldn't approve it. So a lot of people have that mindset of you build it and they will come. We don't like to say that. But I think that a lot of people have that kind of a negative taste in their mouth when they think of some of that. But not everyone that lives in rentals or in tiny homes or in, multi-family homes, whatever they're called, aren't all living in poverty. They're just not. So, even if there's some high-end apartments, I know Gaylord had built some that were not affordable for individuals that were living on a minimum wage. But what it does do is it frees up some of those subsidized housing and some of those private landlords, and allows these people that only make that minimum wage to be able to move into there. But yeah, I think a lot of that is freeing up some of the subsidies and bringing more subsidies into the area, like project-based vouchers. In the 11 counties that we serve, we only have 3 counties that offer project-based vouchers. We have no permanent supportive housing up here. So we're kind of, there's a lot of people that fall in between those cracks, and those are the people that we're trying to be here to help. Another thing that I would like to see to come into our community is a weatherization kind of project. And I know, Mandy, that's something that you, I know you have a passion for, is those renovations, but not weatherization for home ownership, weatherization to offer relief to landlords. Sometimes we go into homes, or sometimes we aren't even allowed in the homes because they just know that our inspection won't pass. So we're immediately cut off at the door right there. So if there's something that we could provide for them, because what we can pay for rent isn't going to pay their renovation costs, and the tenant can't live there because it's not habitable. So if there was some type of program or grant availability to individuals in Northeast Michigan to be able to rehab their home or weatherize their home, that wasn't at the cost of the landlord, especially new landlords that are getting, it's their first time in that kind of field, and this is the only income they have, they can't afford to take chances like that. So if there's something like that that could help landlords in the community, I think that would be sustainable as well.
Was that something that was talked about when you did the landlord meeting before COVID hit last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big one. The landlord said, we won't even let you do a housing inspection because we know you're going to fail it right away. And we don't report them to anyone. It's just we tell them what the issues are and what has to be fixed. But it's a big barrier. They know what the quality standards inspection is, and they just know, and they know they're never going to make the corrections, and they'll have people that will live there pay what they charge for it. And I mean, that's not safe either, but that's their income, and that's how they operate. So and I get it, that's how they're paying their mortgage for that rental unit. So it's kind of this, like this dog chasing its tail. It's this catch-22. They can't afford to make the repairs, and they can't afford to take our participants. So then we have people that are sleeping in the street. But that's kind of the bigger picture of it.
I will just add what I would like to see happen in our
Right.
community.
Absolutely.
I think is what everyone said, just to restate, but really it all goes back to the leadership. Like someone had talked about zoning issues and stigmatization of poverty. So when I go to a lot of these meetings, I hear a lot of both, and that is very frustrating to me. So in Cheboygan, a lot of people in different positions will talk about blight and talk about rentals as though all rentals are blighted. I obviously don't agree with that at all. And I think that just further stigmatizes people renting and the dignity that goes along with renting versus home ownership, stigmatizes renting, stigmatizes poverty. So I feel like our leadership should really be careful in how they address these issues, and be conscious of the fact that how they speak of renting and how they speak of low-income households does set the tone for the entire community. So the destigmatization, and then also planning and zoning for mixed income redevelopment. So my concern, and I'm sure Mandy, you share it, and Joy and Victoria, what we all have in common is we all really want to see communities grow and thrive and prosper. And the entire city of Cheboygan is an opportunity zone. So investors do get some pretty nice incentives for investing in the city of Cheboygan, but that also comes with a little bit of a risk of gentrifying, which I feel like we are right kind of on the border of right now. So with our property values already going up so much so fast, and then when we are talking about building more, that is going to result in a pretty big jump in a very short period of time, that does put us at risk of gentrifying. So just make sure that with every planning and zoning conversation about building something new that is for people who can have a mortgage, who do have credit, who are looking to build equity, that we're balancing that out with people who are working but low income. And not to mention, especially people in the community, of which there are many who are elderly, disabled, and living on a fixed income, to make sure that there is balance for all of the people who have very mixed income and housing needs.
I definitely think it helps that we're having this conversation. I think we need to have more conversations on housing and more education across the entire community on all of the different agencies that are here and all of the other agencies that provide similar services or help in conjunction with what we do. I know when I first started here, not a lot of people knew what Habitat was and what we were doing. And so we just have to continue to pound the pavement, which has been a little bit challenging with COVID because it's hard to build relationships and go to meetings and do everything that you need to do given the COVID world that we're in. But we definitely have to continue to educate the community. But again, as Kate mentioned, that needs to happen top down and bottom up both ways. And we just need to have support, and people need to be willing to listen and listen to understand, because that housing is that thing that everyone has an opinion on. And it is really hard to get someone who is upset because they're trying to get in a rental and other renters ruined it for them. And it's hard to get people sometimes to just stop and listen. So we definitely have some more work to do on that front.
Kate, the housing advocacy group that you mentioned, is everyone in this call a part of that group?
I think Mandy is on my distribution list. I have sent notices to all of the rental owners that I have an email address for in our database. Then Victoria doesn't participate directly because she's got plenty of meetings to go to, but some of Victoria's staff, they participate.
So I think we're talking about number 5. Who does it take to have at the table to work through this housing crisis? Is there anyone not at that table for the housing advocacy?
I think it takes everyone in our community. It takes a business owner who is just trying to find different housing solutions for their staff. It takes motel owners that are willing to work with some of the programs that we have, and it takes everyone. So we need more people that are willing to have a voice on this housing crisis that we're facing in our community.
We have gotten the attention from MISTA, and they have provided a grant to us that is going to pay the wages for a housing navigator who will lead kind of this advocacy in Northeast Michigan. So we hired her about 2 weeks ago. So once she gets all of her training, she will be doing a lot of this in Northeast Michigan to seek those grants and seek those contractors. And it's a big job for one person, but I'm just happy that we have the attention of the state and how big of an issue it is up here for us, especially with the lack of shelters. So we have a lot of individuals that want to reside here. However, they cannot because there's nowhere to live, regardless if you're living in poverty or not. So we have that recognition from our grant funder, and so that's something that we will be putting into motion here soon once she gets all her training and up and going. So it's a brand new position. We're kind of taking it as we go. So Kate, I would love if she could sit in and maybe get to know some of your contacts that you have, because I know you do a lot with your city, and if she can, pick your brain because you have some really great experience. I think what you're doing in Cheboygan, we would like to see happen in some of our other counties. So if you're open to that, we would really appreciate that collaboration. And I do know that Habitat is getting more involved in some of our other counties, and Mandy, we thank you for that as well. So that's something that this new staff person can assist you with as well. So we have a lot of little projects for her to get ready, but just that recognition from the state, and that this is such a needed resource, someone to lead this effort. and talk to those contractors and developers and property managers.
And I will be always happy to help. And I usually have a couple things to say. I will just add that there are a lot of rentals in Cheboygan, and there is housing available. And Victoria, this position that you're talking about is so important, because my experience in Cheboygan is really, if someone is looking for a place to live, you have to know someone. So our network of rental owners, there are a lot of really great ones like Mr. Elliott and people that we work with in our voucher program. And there are a lot of other owners out there that we don't even know about. So this whole network of rentals that are available is really subversive and extremely difficult for anyone to navigate. And all I do every day is work with rentals, and there's a lot of them that I don't even know about. So that would be very helpful if we could, at least get a list of what rentals are out there and who the owners are and who is managing it and what are the rents. Would the rents work with my programs and Victoria's programs? And would those owners who will work with our programs list those rentals like on the MISHDA website? So when someone is trying to find a place to work with their voucher, that it doesn't have to be this like treasure hunt to try to find a place. It doesn't need to be so competitive. And it will also really help, like NUMSCA has to do a community needs assessment. I need to do a housing needs assessment. Anyone that's looking to do development in Cheboygan has to do a housing needs assessment. And it is completely impossible to do because we're really just guessing at what is available and what are the rents and what is the vacancy rate, is it accessible, and things like that. And then I will just add, like I said earlier, to the who does it take. We know in Cheboygan that there are a lot of very, very vocal opinions about the rental market in Cheboygan that can be found on various locations on the internet. So we really need the voices of clients and people who need rental housing to participate. So people who have lived experience with homelessness, people who have lived experience with family unification through Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and people who are either living on a fixed income or people who are working with a really low income, to talk to them and talk about what has worked really well for them, what has been a barrier, what has been difficult, what would they like to see more of, so that we, even though we have a lot of industry specific knowledge, we may not have that lived experience. So we shouldn't really be just making decisions for other people who are in those situations. And before we're done, I just want to say thank you to Mandy for organizing this.
You're welcome.
All right, back to you, Mandy.
Yeah, so I will say it's great to hear everybody's perspective on housing and the issues that we're faced with. And there's always going to be so much more that we could do. There's not enough hours in the day. Some days it feels like to get everything done that we need to get done. But if we have more people coming to the table to be that voice and to help us move forward, then we can start to move the needle a little bit more on some of the housing issues in our community. One of the questions that we skipped on, but touched on a little bit is kind of what resources do you need to continue? Habitat for Humanity is a local nonprofit. We definitely fall under Habitat for Humanity International's umbrella. So we're blessed to have a lot of great advocacy tools and things like that. But we receive zero funding from them unless we apply for grant specific funding. So we are a community funded organization, and we compete for a lot of the same dollars that these other agencies in our community are looking at. I mean, we're kind of all competing for some of the same dollars sometimes, so we can try and do a little bit more. So it takes more funding, it takes more people, it takes cost to be reduced a little bit more. It takes everyone and everything right now to help continue to get more safe, decent, and affordable housing, whether it's home ownership or through rentals in our community. So we are going to skip on. This is a Habitat video I just wanted to share as it kind of just wrapped up some of the points we just went over. So now we're going to give each agency organization the chance to talk a little bit about their program or development that they have going on. So Greg, you are up first.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I've known that Cheboygan has had a housing shortage for years. I was working with this gentleman. He had a housing development in New Jersey back in the 90s. And, I talked him into doing a build here. We looked at doing some apartment buildings at first, and the property didn't really work out. And then I came across this Stemke farm, and we did some questioning with realtors as far as, what price range of homes they could sell. And, they said 175 to 185, they'd sell. So he decided to take that little leap of faith with me, and he purchased the property. We've had the first 10 parcels across Western Avenue. 3 homes are on their way. We're still working with the city and the schools to develop the rest of the property. The city had bought property for the road to take the pressure off of Lincoln Avenue back in 2004. And so, if we can, persuade them to do that, we'll be able to develop further into there. If not, we'll just have the next 13 homes that we can do on the east side of the trail that's there. And then most likely we'd probably look at going out into some townships or whatever, because there's a need for homes in Cheboygan. So I'm just lucky that I have an outside developer that, will put some time and money into it. And that's what we're doing.
Great. It's definitely going to be a huge impact to our community.
I hope so. I hope we get to all of them. So that's all I have.
All right, Victoria.
Let me find my unmute button. All right, so I wasn't really sure what to put on these slides because I have a lot of information, but I know we're getting close to the ending time, so I won't take up too much of your time. So the 3 biggest things that we help with is locating and navigating the rental world. We provide financial assistance through rapid rehousing and homeless prevention, which helps evictions and those that are couch surfing or doubled up. And then our our last one is support and advocacy. So once individuals are leased up, they have access to a HUD certified budget counselor and then a housing resource specialist. And the goal of those two positions is to ensure that an individual does not return to homelessness. So the very first one is locating housing that we talked about earlier. We have that new position. So essentially what we want to do is be able to match each homeless family with a rental that is going to be sufficient, safe, and affordable for them. Once we put them into a unit, then we are able to pay security deposit and first month's rent. After the first month's rent is paid, they are assigned a case manager, and from there it will be determined how long they need rental assistance. So we have two rental assistance programs. One is up to 6 months of rent. Due to the pandemic, we can pay up to 9 months of rent if they have a COVID crisis or need or has lost their job. We can fit a lot of things under the COVID crisis. So we say about between 6 to 9 months of rental assistance, and that is based on the fair market rent. We do 120% of the fair market rent. And then our other program, we are able to pay 18 months of assistance, 24 if it is a COVID pandemic issue. And with that, we also utilize the FMR. And that one, it has to have utilities included or the calculation of utilities in order to be able to be paid for that. We can pay 1.5 times the rent for the security deposit. So that's usually our selling feature for our landlords, is that we are able to pay that higher security deposit. And then 18 months of rent. So with that program, they have to have a year lease in place. And then after the year lease, we do allow them to go month to month. We do 2 housing inspections. We have a habitability inspection, which is our 6 to 9 month program, and that's funded through MSHA. And with that, we are basically checking that the home is habitable to live in. So there's no broken windows, the door's locked, there's the ceiling is intact. It's very basic and habitable. There's running water, you know, the outside elements aren't going to get to them. And then our long-term program, our 18 to 24 month rental assistance program, that one's the larger one, our housing quality standards. And that checks everything from windows to number of steps to handrails to, I mean, you name it, we check it. That one is one of our bigger ones. So when we're talking to landlords, we do know some of the landlords that they won't pass a certain inspection. And so then we have to determine if a homeless family will be able to be self-sufficient in that 6 month timeline for that habitability inspection. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes in that locating and navigating housing. With the case management and support, we talked about that a little bit. It's been about 2 or 3 years now, we've had to start prioritizing our households that come in for assistance, and that can be a little bit difficult for individuals to understand, right? Because we're the main contact hub for individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And for the past 50 years, we have been able to house people as they show up. So it's been first come, first serve model. And what HUD has required us as beneficiaries in the state of Michigan is to now prioritize those households. So we aren't able to offer assistance at a first come, first serve. So what happens is an individual calls in to us and we do a vulnerability assessment on them. They are given an acuity score, and from there, they are determined what kind of housing program they need to go in. So that has been a little bit of a struggle for our COC to manage that. So we essentially have a prioritization list, which is, it's not a wait list because some people wait, some people don't, but we do prioritize those that need the most assistance first. So that's been a little bit of a struggle for us. But again, I think we're on our 3rd year of doing that. So we're getting a little bit more of the community buy-in, but it's been difficult. It's been hard, especially for individuals that they are coming back through the system and they say, well, it's October 1st, how come I can't get help? They know that the grant year ended, and we have to have those hard conversations that it's based on that vulnerability. So that's something that we're trying to continue to roll out and refine and get that going. The homeless data, I did pull some of the Cheboygan data for you guys. There's 74 individuals that were homeless for the year. Now, these are only the individuals that have come to us. I know there are a lot of, we hear of a lot of homeless that were previously in Cheboygan. However, you guys don't have a homeless shelter up there. So you'll see some of those higher numbers in Alpena and Iosco. And the reason for that is because they have a general population shelter. So oftentimes we will get people from Rogers City, Cheboygan, Onaway, Indian River, those kind of areas. And they'll either go to Petoskey, they'll go to Traverse City, they'll go to Alpena. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you the regional data, which was 1,044 individuals sought our services. And the reason I wanted to show you the regional data is because if they call us and they're in Cheboygan and they need to get it to a general population shelter, we'll work with some other agencies to get them a bus ticket or to get them a car ride or what have you to get to one of those general population shelters. And that data is collected then at that shelter. So 74 isn't really an accurate number for your community. And it's only because you guys don't have a shelter. What we do have is we have emergency shelter motel vouchers. However, those only go up to 7 days. And if you've ever been homeless before, it is very hard to get on your feet after 7 days. It's hard to get on your feet after 7 days if you're not homeless. So it's a very, very tiny little Band-Aid that's put on these people's situation in order to get them to oftentimes a general population shelter or get them to a family and friends, maybe downstate, and they just need to wait for a bus ticket. So just keep that in mind, that 74 isn't your hard number on who has experienced homelessness in Cheboygan in the last year. Some of these other data is from our annual report on family homelessness. We're really focusing on family homelessness this year, especially youth homelessness. So we want to be able to kind of end that generational poverty and start working towards making sure that these youth either exiting foster care or they just start on their own because they've been emancipated. So this is the first year that we have collaborated with Child and Family Services, and they are actually going to be offering rapid rehousing support and case management for individuals that are under 26. So anyone that comes in any of our counties under 26 will go to that agency, and they will get more intensive case management from those trained individuals from a youth perspective.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I am Catherine Schultz. I go by Kate. I'm the director of the Cheboygan Housing Commission. We administer 2 federally subsidized rental assistance programs. Will you flip me back, just my background? Because no one knows where we fit in. We are not an entity of Cheboygan County. We are a chartered entity of the city of Cheboygan. So back in 1958, when HUD was expanding their programs and making more available in rural communities, city of Cheboygan chartered the Housing Authority so that we could start with the public housing program. Now, between 1962 and 1963, our public housing apartments were constructed at 3 different locations throughout the city of Cheboygan. So we have 38 total units varying in sizes from 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. So my contact information is there. We are a publicly funded entity, so our meetings are all open. Like I said earlier, we have advocacy meetings at 10 o'clock, the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And that is, I was hoping it would be an opportunity for clients to come and participate and talk about their housing needs and what they would like to see. And we have a lot of advocates and people involved in policy and rental owners and things like that participate. And then our regular board meetings are at 12 o'clock on the same day, 3rd Wednesday of every month. So if you could go ahead and click over. So we do 2 programs for low income residents. So the majority of our clients are 40% of AMI or less, but we can go up to 80% depending on what their circumstances are. So like I said, we have the public housing program. Those units are owned and managed by the housing authority. So the city of Cheboygan is under declaration of trust with HUD that says that no matter what happens with these properties, they have to remain affordable housing in perpetuity. And like I said earlier, we're looking at transitioning out of public housing, but we would not lose subsidies. We would not lose affordability. All of the current public housing tenants would get a portable housing choice voucher. They will be protected under the Resident Relocation Act. We hopefully will be able to rebuild on our existing properties and possibly even add more units through repositioning and redevelopment. So if these are things you're interested in, let me know and I'll be sure that you keep in touch. So when we get going with that process, which I hope will be sometime this year, I'm hoping to submit that application to HUD by June 1st, if things go well. And then the other program we administer is the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So MISHDA also offers this program. When Victoria talks about project-based vouchers, she's talking about MISHDA project-based vouchers. So MISHDA obviously has a lot more vouchers than we have. We have 120 vouchers that we can administer in the city of Cheboygan or the surrounding townships that comprise the school district. Those vouchers, like I said, are portable. We can project-base them if and when we need to. And the voucher program, as you all are likely very aware, does not limit people to a public housing site. That voucher can be used anywhere in the private rental market in the community if the owner is willing to work with the program and, like Victoria talked about, if the unit passes inspection. So both these programs, the clients have to apply to be added to the waiting list. So our application, they would check if they're interested in public housing or the voucher program or both. And like Victoria had talked about with prioritizing, we use preferences on our waiting list to make sure that elderly, disabled, displaced individuals, veterans, and people who have been employed for 30 days get pulled from the waiting list using those priorities.
Great, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Joy?
Okay, I'm Joy from USDA Rural Development, or a federal program that our office concentrates more on the 504 repair loan grant program and the 502 direct loan. So we're a little different than a bank. Your loan is directly with the government. There's no added processing fees, anything like that. So it's very affordable. It's built for low income applicants. Our goal is to mainly get applicants into a single family home that they can afford. And we talked about unsubsidizing rent a little bit, unsubsidized rent. A lot of times their mortgage payment can be lower and is lower than a subsidized rental payment. So especially with the rate as it is right now. So let's talk about, go to the next slide. Repair loans are for very low income. Michigan, we're in a pilot program right now. It used to be loans up to 20,000. We're now doing loans up to 40,000 at a 1% interest rate. And that is to help make the home a safe, sanitary place to live. If you're over the age of 62, we offer repair grants. The grants, because of the pilot, go up to $10,000. They used to be $7,500. So that has increased. And of course, the grant is not, you don't have to pay it back. So those, and I know we've partnered with you, Mandy, on a few repair things. So that's probably not as popular as our 502, but man, it's really helpful to get those repairs done, especially since so many of the homes out there are older homes that really do need help. So our next is the direct 504 direct loan program. That's what we mostly do. It is for low income. Again, there's no fees, there's no processing fees. You know, we're not a profit, just like you guys. So we really keep costs down. They do not have to come up with a down payment. Most of the time, 99% of the time, closing costs can roll right into the loan. So our borrowers usually don't bring anything to the table for when they purchase the home. There's also some payment subsidy that allows people to afford either a larger home for a bigger family, or it allows them to get in a better home with less maintenance. We definitely look out for our borrowers and want to make sure when they get into a home, that home's not going to cost them a lot of money right after they purchase it, because they're low income and we want them in a safe, stable home. So let's see, I think that's pretty much it for, I mean, of course, our applicants have to, their debt to income ratio has to fit into our parameters to allow for a mortgage payment, but that's really our goal.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest things I've heard in my line of trying to work with people for home repairs is people just had no idea even our program existed, let alone your program existed. So on some of these homes, we've been able to couple projects where the one project we just did in Indian River, you guys provided grant funding for a veteran so his bathroom could be handicap accessible. And then we came and replaced the windows, water heater, furnace, fixed his front porch step, took out his wood stove, and we're going to go back and help him do some yard cleanup in the spring. But it's nice when we can come together and really help someone out that just needs assistance and didn't have $20,000 or $30,000 to take out of their own pocket to do these repairs. And when your health deteriorates, it's hard to maintain your home. So Habitat for Humanity. So we have 2 housing programs. We partner with people from all walks of life. A lot of the time our program partners fall between 30 to 60% of the area median income based on their family size. For Cheboygan County, our home repair program has lower AMI restrictions for that program as well. So our homeownership program, Habitat homes are not free. We do not give them away. Habitat home buyers, they work hard. They are working alongside staff and volunteers to learn the skills needed to maintain their home long-term. We do offer a low to zero interest mortgage, which typically does not exceed 30% of their monthly income. A lot of the time they're not approved for a mortgage when they apply for our program. They're approved for our program, they do the work, and then they apply for a mortgage when we are closer to the closing end of the stage. So in both of our program partners are based on their level of need. They have to be able to afford a mortgage or a loan, and they have to be willing to partner. So even on our home repair programs, whether it's just cleaning up to prepare for their windows to be replaced, the cleanup they have to do, the stuff they have to move to prepare. For some of our home repair people, that's just the right amount of work that they can do to give back and invest in their project. Our home repair program, we are starting to do more. We just finished our 4th repair. Technically this year, we started them at the end of 2020 and they all just finished in these last 2 months. And we have 5 more ready to go. Our hope is to do at least 7 home repairs a year. So we help homeowner occupied occupants that fall under 60% of the AMI for the county. So we have 3 different stages of our program. So a brush with kindness is just minor exterior things, from the outside painting to landscaping. We do weatherization. to improve some energy efficiencies. And then our critical home repair, as you can see in my pictures, we just finished a bathroom remodel for someone who needed a handicap accessible bathroom for their home that was deteriorating, and they just could not afford the repairs on their own. So we offer a 0 interest repair loan on a sliding scale fee. And sometimes we are able to partner with agencies such as Joy's or the Region 9 Area Agency on Aging to make it even more affordable for people in our community. So at the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter what agency you reach out to. We should be able to help connect you with an agency that can help you. And if not, we're going to do our best to figure out, what's missing and how do we do something? How do we come together to figure out a solution to this problem? So that is all I have on Habitat. I just want to thank you guys for presenting today and sharing what your agency does in our community. Housing is a conversation that's going to have to continue to happen, and we have to get more people involved. And the only way we can do that is by starting the conversation. So that's what we are doing today. We are starting this conversation on housing in our community, and we will go from there. So if anybody has any last minute points they want to make, you can make them now. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Mandy.